This video provides an overview of the IRS reporting requirements under the Affordable Care Act. This recording is intended to provide a short, high-level explanation of the Affordable Care Act requirements that SAGE considered when updating our software to support this legislation. This content should not be construed as professional advice. Be sure to check with your tax, legal, financial, or other business professional to assess the suitability of this content before determining how to implement the information in your business. To ensure that you have the latest information about government requirements, SAGE recommends that you visit the IRS website for more detailed information. As an employer, what do you need to know about reporting employee health care benefits to the IRS? On the Form W-2 wage and tax statement, you must report the cost of health care coverage under an employer-sponsored group health plan in Box 12 using code DD. The amount should include both the portion paid by the employer and the portion paid by the employee. The IRS has issued forms to comply with Affordable Care Act reporting, and they include the 1094B, 1095B, 1094C, and 1095C. As an employer, which forms do you file? Well, that depends on whether or not your company is an applicable large employer or affiliated with one, and if the health plan you offer is self-insured. Insurers, government agencies, and employers of any size who sponsor self-insured group health plans must use Forms 1094B and 1095B to report the minimum essential coverage they provide to the IRS and to all covered individuals. Any applicable large employer, regardless of whether it's a tax-exempt or government entity, must use Forms 1094C and 1095C to report the health insurance coverage offered to the IRS and to their full-time employees. What does an applicable large employer mean, and is your business one? According to the IRS, an applicable large employer, or an ALE, is one that employed at least 50 full-time employees or a combination of full-time and part-time employees that equals at least 50 during the preceding calendar year. For the purpose of the Affordable Care Act, a full-time employee is one who performs at least 30 hours of service per week in a calendar month. The IRS has set methods to calculate the number of full-time employees in a calendar month. You should refer to their documentation to find out how. To see if you qualify as an applicable large employer, you must find out the number of employees for each month in the preceding calendar year. Be aware that even if your company has fewer than 50 full-time employees and equivalents, you're still required to file if you're part of a controlled or affiliated service group that collectively has at least 50 full-time employees and equivalents. Companies are considered to be in a controlled or affiliated service group if they have common owners, provide services for each other, or work together to provide services to third parties. This chart demonstrates which forms you would need to file as an employer. You can pause this video while you examine it. In most cases, the employer files Forms 1094C and 1095C, unless it is a small employer that is self-insured. If your company qualifies as an applicable large employer, you must file 1094C and 1095C forms for the calendar year. Let's find out more about these forms. The 1095C is the employer-provided health insurance offer and coverage statement, and you prepare this form for each full-time employee. The 1095C is used to determine eligibility of individuals for premium tax credit. The following information is reported on Form 1095C: the employer's name, address, and employer identification number, the employee's name, address, and social security number, whether the employee was a full-time employee each month, whether the employee and family members were offered health coverage each month that met the minimum value standard, the employee's share of the monthly premium for the lowest cost minimum value health coverage offered, the affordability safe harbor applicable for the employee, and whether the employee was enrolled in the health plan. To learn about the reporting requirements, be sure to visit the IRS website. The 1094-C is the transmittal of employer-provided health insurance offer and coverage information returns form. You prepare this form to report summary information and send it to the IRS along with the 1095-C forms. The following information is reported on Form 1094-C. The employer's name, address, employer identification number, and contact person, the total number of Forms 1095-C filed, a certification by month as to whether the employer offered to its full-time employees and their dependents the opportunity to enroll in minimum essential health coverage, the number of full-time employees for each month of the calendar year, the total number of employees for each month, whether special rules or other relief applies to the employer, and the names and employer identification numbers of other employers that are in a controlled group or affiliated service group with the employer. To learn about the reporting requirements, be sure to visit the IRS website. Your Sage software can help you file the 1094-C and 1095-C forms or 1094-B and 1095-B forms. And for a small fee, Atrix can even send out the employee copies for you. Check your software documentation to find out how to track the required information and how to generate the forms. There are several things you can do to ensure that you're prepared for the reporting requirements. First, familiarize yourself with the rules and regulations by reading the IRS filing instructions and other documentations related to the employer shared responsibility provision. Next, examine your employee count to determine whether or not your company is an applicable large employer that needs to file Forms 1094-C and 1095-C for the calendar year. For related companies with common owners, review the ownership structure to determine if you're part of a controlled or affiliated service group that collectively has at least 50 full-time employees and equivalents. Your Sage software may require you to install an update to support Affordable Care Act reporting. Look for software notices for instructions in the coming weeks. Gather essential information on your employees and their healthcare coverage by month and track this in your software.